for being here. Great to see everyone this morning. My name is Sarah Smith, and I work in the Office of Community Partnerships Planning and Research at Grinnell College. I have the honor of working with the Bucket Course Committee to bring these courses to you throughout the fall and spring. So excited to have everyone here today. I do have one quick announcement. Even though I have been working very hard and I have over 20 emails out to people, the next 2 weeks we're going to take a break. I don't know if everyone's wanting to take a break with the college who's going on fall break, but both the 18th and the 15th, we are not going to have programming here. I do encourage you next week, though, Grinnell College Museum of Art on Thursday, October 9th, is finally opening up after some construction, so maybe go there on Thursday and check that out. But next couple weeks, we're not going to have programming. We'll be back on October 22nd here again, so plan on that. I will be sending some emails out to everyone the next couple weeks, just reminding of the break and reminding of that we're going to resume on the 22nd. So, sorry about that, but I really, truly have tried. That's okay. We'll go for the 22nd. So a couple reminders before we start. Make sure that your T-coils are on. Make sure that your phones are silenced. If you have a chance when we're done to help us put the chairs away afterwards, that would be wonderful. And we will have time for questions. So if you could wait until I get to you with the microphone so we can all hear each other, that will be wonderful to ask your question. So today, I'm very excited to hear an update from our Superintendent Lisa Beams on an update about the Grinnell-Newburg School District. Do you have anything going on? I think there's several things that we're very excited about hearing from you, Superintendent Beams, about the district, what's happening, and we're thrilled that you're here. So could you please help me welcome Superintendent Beams?
Thank you, guys. Can you hear me? Yeah. Awesome. So first of all, since you're taking a break next week, they're not going to find us, all right? I am sorry. I broke the rules. All right. But that's one of the things I look forward to in retirement is I won't have to have my phone with me all the time. So this is good. So since you're taking a break next week, remember that it's homecoming week. And so that's got lots of activities and excitement in our school buildings. And as well, we have the pep rally that is Thursday evening. So if you feel like it, you want to get out. It is one of the most amazing. I've been in education for over 30 years and been an administrator for over 20. And can you hear me? Are you sure you can hear me? Otherwise, I'll hold the handheld. I'm good. You want me to do that? Okay. So the tradition of homecoming and that pep rally last year was one of my favorite takeaways from the year. It was just amazing when you were walking down the street that every kid had a T-shirt, okay? And everybody lingered in the park to go through that and celebrate together. So that is one of the best memories I will carry with me as I go forward. The pep rally, the parade, it's all downtown in the park, in the Central Park. Yeah, okay, great spot. All right, so I'm happy to be with you, and I'm going to try to walk you through just a few things that are going on in the district here. So fall is my favorite time of year. Sometimes I struggle with it because while I see it as an event that we get to fall, the transition to getting fall can present challenges to me. Like I don't get my heels and my sandals together with my jacket and all of that stuff. So please just ignore that. And also when you live in an Airbnb, so you're going back and forth during the week, sometimes you forget things like your jewelry. And that's just driving me really crazy this week. So let's get on to the important stuff. All right, so really seasons are one of the beautiful things of Iowa, and in seasons, everything has a season in change as well, okay? So when we talk about seasons of change, really one is an event, And then it's how do we manage the transition to get there? When we're sitting in the middle of summer and we're preparing for winter, you know, we take certain steps to get ready. When we're in fall, we take more steps to make sure that we're ready for winter. So everything is really what's the event, and then how do you manage the transition in my world? What do I know is coming? What do I know we need to prepare for? And then how am I going to work to try to get us there in the best way so that we don't lose people and we don't lose systems and structures along the way? Because once you get into that and it gets lost, it's really, really hard. You know, sometimes in life we experience things where we're not ready. It's an event, and that transition is really, really hard. And that's what I try to avoid in the work that we've been doing here since I arrived. So we're going to talk through this in terms of events, categories of events. And Sarah's going to help me when I need to stop and take a break, and we'll just stop where we're at. So in the district, we have three major facility events going on that we're working the transitions to. So the first one was the closure of Davis Elementary. And we disposed of Davis officially on June the 30th last year. The district no longer owned the property. And we were fortunate that we got it out to a developer, and it's going to become apartments in the future. So, but the transitions we dealt with, one of them being the disposal of the facility and the land, the other two were our biggest energy demand and much planning to it. One was the relocation of our students and staff. So we took all of our K-3 students and we took what they would have been going to, we held that incoming third grader who would have been second graders in their buildings. So that meant we had to move staff all over. The fourth graders went to the middle school where we created what we call a school within a school. And that's been open. There was just lots and lots of planning. School started. We're now a month into it. And those things seem to be going well. There's still, you know, there will always be hiccups. We'll be in the model of facilities until we open up the new elementary school. So everybody's situated where they will be as of now. The movement of district property, I commend our staff, both our teachers, our technology, our buildings and grounds custodial in getting that done well. And we did hire a local company to help us move semi-loads instead of truckloads. And so that all happened over the summer. Is completed. We have some storage that you'll see outside of our buildings. They're storage units, okay? But they're where we're holding stuff because we don't have space to hold it, and we have intent to use some of it at the new school. So we're not meaning to be bad neighbors with the storage containers. It's just that's where we're holding it, is on district property in those places where if we need a piece of furniture or something, we can get to it easily. So that was the first facilities event. The second facilities event that we've been working on is actually getting the authority from the public through the vote that we took in March to build a new elementary school. All right, so building schools is a whole process, and what I've done here is highlight in red what's done. So when we look at the construction of the new school, the schematic design process, that portion of the construction is completed, and that's where we take lots of input from our staff and our administrators. We send them out to look at different things. What do you generally want to see in this school? Okay? So the second phase, we all know that we have all these things that we want, and we have to manage the revenue that we have available. And so that's the budget analysis, and we are oh so close to having the budget. And it's just a really tough process. And it's also because some things aren't down to the final dollars, but you have to make decisions. So we're working through that and hope to have that done here very soon, okay? So we're a week or so behind, but we're still on good target. Then we move into design development. We say, okay, these are the parameters by which we're going to build this school. This is generally what you will see within this school, what we want, and they get into actually doing the design development of it. So that gets down to the different levels of all the systems that go within a school. Then they will build the construction documents, which is basically be blueprints that have all the parameters around what are we looking for in terms of the material, what are we looking for in all of those pieces. And that will run from August to October. So some of these things are going on at the same time because you have different systems at different places. Design development, August to October. Construction documents, November to January. Bids and contracts. Bids will go out, are scheduled to go out in February. They will be due in March. We will enter into the contracts. And then they anticipate breaking the ground in April. Okay? So over here, I gave you what is now an old image of the school, but there are a couple of points I wanted to make related to that. So it will be a 2-story building, all right? And there are reasons behind that decision to move to a 2-story. If you've driven out by Arns Park, which is an amazing gift to the school district and to the community, what we can do out there, there are 3 soccer fields going north to south. So this is on the north end of the property. And each of them takes a step down, okay? So the goal was to stay within the 2 northern soccer fields. We also knew that we only had the revenues to go to K4. We had desired 5, but the reality is costs, all kinds of things were driving us to a K4 because we want to build the school right. So if we stay on those 2 to the north, in the future, the district, the community can determine about an addition to that because we've protected that 3rd soccer field in order to be able to do that. And that means that you would not have to go east, all right, and impinge on that more. So the 2, going on a 2-story allowed us to be narrower, okay, with what we're doing. So in terms of fire safety, what we've been told is if you have to fight a fire or deal with an emergency in a building with fire equipment, emergency equipment, you're better off to go tall and be able to go around the building than to have it wide and in a block. It's easier to deal with the height, and we have the, so that was an indication. The other thing is the roof is half the size that it would be on a 1-story, which means the future cost of roofing is reduced approximately by a half. So trying to be efficient that way. It also, in that a little longer, narrower piece, allowed us to keep the playgrounds on the back side of the facility, which afford us a couple times a year we'll get somebody who wants to come see a child who doesn't have the rights to see the child. And so it's easier for us to manage site and access by having that longer, narrow where we can get our playgrounds to the backside. So those were all drivers as to why we landed there. As I noted, I have never been in a community where experienced the gift of land to a school district in this fashion. So it is something that I do believe Grinnell needs to appreciate that piece. We will officially accept the land at the 2nd meeting in October. And it will be effective for November 1st. So some of that is just really, really technical because the district offices, which at this point in time we're still leasing from them. We were leasing downtown. It's roughly the same amount, but it gets us where we needed to be. We moved in the first day of school, okay? So that was just the timing when we could get our staff and all those people squared away. So we're actually out there. So if you come looking for the district office, go out to the Arns Foundation and you'll find us. Amy, my assistant, is at the reception desk that serves everybody in the building. So we're easily accessible to you if you can get out there. Okay? Questions about the facility events and transitions that we're working through? Yes?
Oh. Mike, real quick, and bring it over.
I just really broke your style. You wanted all the questions at the end.
This is great. No.
Okay.
In terms of the two-story construction, for older people, we often think, 2 stories, have we got an elevator, or how do people get up and down? So what does that mean in terms of those are offsetting higher costs to construction? I can see many advantages of having 2 stories.
So the cost of adding the elevator, it works out to be a neutral point in terms of cost generally, because you have other impacts about the wider piece. So when we talked about that, they said that's basically a moot point in terms, because the elevator's not going to add that much and you gain other efficiencies in other places. So there is an elevator in it. We're required by law to have it accessible, building it, especially for our students. It's a huge celebration for me. I think you know that our grandson, our son-in-law, is from Grinnell, and they have a disabled child who is in a wheelchair all the time. So knowing that if they ever choose to move back, that would have been somewhat of a challenge for him when he was in lower elementary, and he's now in, I have 9 of them. I think he's 4th grade. And so knowing that he would have been able to come to a school, an elementary school, where he could have been able to go for a long time is very, very comforting to me.
I have worked in schools, and I'm curious. There will be an elevator. Will it be a large enough elevator to accommodate cleaning equipment, the floors, the big floor scrubbers, as well as wheelchair for very special, oversized wheelchairs and such for kids?
So I can't give you a definite answer, but it certainly puts a peg in my mind to make sure that we have accommodated that size. I would believe with the building, yes, because we have to move our cleaning equipment up and down. So it should be fully sized enough to handle that.
So it'll be an elevator, just not a platform lift to get
Oh,
there.
yes, it is an elevator.
Lisa's, we're going the other side too. I also wouldn't have thought of this if I didn't work and be part of groups for Renfro. Another thing for elevators that we didn't realize until later. Oh, we need to make sure that we can have emergency stretchers, things like that in those,
Yeah.
And those are all things that you are thinking about, and we'll make sure that elevator's large enough to have those as well. So, question in the back.
Is the current parking lot going to remain there?
So that is our intent, is yes, we want to protect the parking lot for multiple pieces. So the front parking lot, if you're talking on the west side of the property, will certainly stay there. We're also trying to make sure that it's not destroyed in construction, because it would be a place where you might want to assemble the building. And we're trying to find a different place to put that, so when we get to the end of the project, we don't have to go in and pour new concrete, because we all know that concrete, et cetera, is very, very expensive. So that is on the top of our priority list, if at all possible, is to keep the current parking lot. So there will be a parking lot there. We would like to be able to offset some costs by structuring where they put those resources. And I think there's enough space out there for us to find a different space to do the holding. Okay? Yes?
Somebody was telling me once that there's a certain logic to how you distribute the classes, like the younger classes, kindergarten and first, between floors.
Right.
So I just wondered if...
So the structure of the building as it sits now, and we're close enough to being final, and somebody really was kind to me here. Okay? Yeah. So the building is set up that the offices are right up here at the top of this. So to highlight, and it doesn't look exactly the same, but it still works the same, that at night we can lock down the rest of the building, the instructional component of the building, in order if we have events that we're hosting or practices. So you have K1 needs to be on a ground floor, and I think that's state law, that they have to be on the ground floor. So you have that. You have 2, 3, and 4 that are on the second floor of the building. So you have that piece. The main floor down here also has the office, and it has a music room. And you would find some special ed rooms, but special ed is also distributed around the building. So your higher needs students will be able to locate in a spot, but what we term your more instructional driven, what we call with a learning disability, those will be housed in places where the kids don't have to travel as far to get to a room. So we're not taking kids from one room to another that's on a different floor, but they're closer together. You will also see this structure. And so this structure, this is a hallway, okay? And they're in what you would call houses or pods. So this is first grade. So this is an entry into the first grade pod. There's also an entry here that can get you to the kindergarten or the first grade pod. There's a door here that goes out to the playground. So I enter over here, my playgrounds are back here. So in this pod, these doors can lock down, all right? And so then you have the lockers, if they have lockers, and the such. So activities and learning in larger groups can occur out here, okay, because each of these rooms also has a door. When we talk about security, if somebody's coming in, these, remind you, can be locked, all right? So I can come in, and if I get past access up there, I can still only get into this hallway, okay? So if that's the case, especially if I'm on the second floor, we've actually created another barrier if we need to move kids out of a building. And God forbid you ever have to do it, but we have the responsibility to plan for it. That we can move kids potentially up and down as we need to move them to get them out of the building, depending on where the emergency is. All right? So that's kind of one of the things that drew us to thinking about it this way, as thinking about one corridor. And we are trying to protect that in the design, both for what it provides instructionally for kids and what it just naturally provides for security. Yes.
My question comes from being a teacher's aide paraprofessional in a 100-year-old building some years ago. That's where my elevator question comes from.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes there is a need to change diapers and to do special feeding. Will there be, particularly for the diaper issue, will there be somewhat a private, semi-private space to take care of these needs?
So most likely within that, you would find it near what we term our level 3 or high needs room, as well as up near the nurses' space. And I am confident there's a location up here as well that can be used for that. So those are all pieces that we've tried to think through, not through that we're going to get all of them, but we're working on them. So thank you. Other questions? Yeah, I think he's bringing you a mic.
This might seem minor, but not really, and I'm sure you're planning for it. Since it's two-story, what about certain drills like fire drills? And I guess, you know, I'm sure you're going to be planning for it, but it might, does that complicate it a little bit if you got 2 stories and a lot of little kids?
No, they were able to do them in Davis. We sent them out. A modern 2-story functions a little bit different than a 100-year-old building, okay? So we have that piece. It's not unusual now to have 2-story elementaries for them, and kids can manage it. They learn that, yes, and we're required to do them, so we make sure they get them, okay? Know how to do that. There also, I believe, in the final plan, there are 3 exits on this side to the building. The other piece for your grandchildren or children in conversations is that there's a drive up that goes up here. So the parent lane is here, all right? And it drops off right up there at the entry. The buses go to the north end of the building and drop off up there. So there's no passover between those vehicles. Buses will exit up here. Cars will exit, are intended to exit further. Okay? Yes?
In looking to expand Grinnell's population, is there room for growth if we have to add on in the
Yes.
future?
So this building sits on the 2 soccer fields to the north, which leaves you the whole third one that is the first one. And that is enough, and that was done purposefully. That was part of the design choice. If you ever wanted to add more than basically 2 grades, so that's also part of the 2-story piece, is you can keep that pattern. Yes, you're going to build up, but building out with the footings and all of that is the initial big cost. That property is big enough that should you decide, hey, we want to move our 7-8 out there, not saying that's going to happen, not saying that's where I would put them, you still have space there, okay? And again, this is not the final, I've been very hesitant to say this is it, and I'm waiting. I'm hoping that by the board meeting, the second board meeting, when we're going to officially accept the gift, we will have that image that is pretty solid about what it's going to look like, because I don't want for the community to somebody say, oh, well, that's not what they said they were going to do. There's some fluidity to building a school. Have I talked too long already?
No, you have not talked too long. It's been great to hear the all of the information so far. I do want to give us, I know some have requested a 10-minute break, but can we just do 5? Let's just do a 5-minute break real quick. If you need to use the restroom or get more coffee and cookies, let's do that. So we'll be back here at 10:35. Okay? I'll give you 5 minutes. Thank you. You and others. We are trying to keep this to about an hour now. So about 11 o'clock, we'll kind of wrap things up and be on with our day. So without further ado, Superintendent Beams.
I think the others will go faster. I want to hit a couple points that I was asked here. This is a K-4 building. When the district receives the gift, we also are going to use the Early Learning Center. Daycare, we want to stay. We don't want to do that, but there's space, we believe, within there that we can provide all of the preschools, so we have kids in an environment that is much easier to make sure is developmentally appropriate rather than a school building itself. So we think that's good, and we think it's also good for parents. We transport kids from our off-site to the Early Learning Center if that's what the parents desire, but hopefully just knowing that that's there. So that will happen. The goal is that preschool will be moved and in there for next school year, just so we can kind of time out what's going on. Somebody asked me the question, I think that gets that piece. What's the new school going to be named? That's ultimately the board's discretion. I'm going to speak to you as Lisa Beams, just a citizen. I would like to see it named Grinnell Elementary School. I think that matches with what you have, and it works well. But I am not the final say. So if you have a very definite opinion about that, the board has not taken that up. They may not take that up before June 30th. And it will be somebody else's decision. Okay? All right. The other thing to know is we also have very specific policy about the naming process of any part of any of our facilities. So we reviewed that as soon as the vote passed, so they have that in place, and that leaves them the decisions they need to make. We're going to keep moving on from here to the next set of events that we deal with, which is people events. So we have a lot of people. We've got 2 main systems right now that are pretty big events. So we have a school board election that's coming up on the 4th of November. There's a process. You need to petition to be placed on it, and there's that. So the people that completed that part of the process and are running for election and re-election on the board are Chris Starrett and Tyler Harder. Those asterisks mean that they're currently on the board. We also have Rebecca Hansen and Ben Cooprider. And if I slaughtered anybody's name there, I apologize. We as a school district, that's an election. We don't get into the weeds on the election. We let the election work its process. So not rerunning would be Laurel Tugalasina and Roger Belcher. I thank them very much for their service that they've given to the district. The voting will occur on November the 4th. Because the school district sits in 2 counties, we are the last to have an approved canvas. We're one of those schools, if you have 2 counties, November the 19th is the date that they canvass those and say, yes, they're good. Our intent is to have a meeting on December the 3rd, which is not our regular, maybe it is our regular, yeah, it is our regular meeting. December the 3rd, to seat the board. So actually, we only have one meeting in December, I believe, and we're setting this meeting in addition to that because we need to get the board seated, and we need to just build some background and have the board come together because they then have the next big people event that they will be dealing with that they have to work on the transition. So they need to hire a new regular superintendent. I feel very fortunate to have been the interim superintendent. And so we have been working on that transition. That transition starts by getting the search firm and working through various steps to get there. So the board met with the search firm, and it's Grunmeyer Leadership Services, which is who's done the last one. And that was the end of August. The community survey is posted, and that actually closes on Friday, October the 3rd. So if you go to the district website, you can see that. And they're just asking for input about what would you look for? What are those things that you would like to see in the next superintendent? I have not taken it, so I can't give you specifically what's in there. The posting will be finalized during October. It's basically ready. It's now just a timeline thing because you're seeking applications from November through December. Ending it in December after Christmas tends to get you a better pool of candidates. It gives them more time. People don't know necessarily that I want to make this shift if we post it now. So it will close in December. The board will have a busy January because they will screen applicants, they will do some initial interviews, and they will do final interviews. And so the goal is to be done by the second to the last week in January and have them hired before the end of January. Hired means that they're coming July the 1st, okay? So the rest of that time, from the time that they're hired until June, my job begins to focus on I need to get you ready to lead this district. So building a lot of background in all the systems, the finance, the personnel, the building, all of those pieces, working with them and our staff to give them as much background as we possibly can. So, questions related to those two big people items?
I want to point out real quick that the survey, which I did take, doesn't take very long. So head out to the district website and complete that survey. It doesn't take, 10 minutes. That's it, which is great.
No questions on that one? Good. I must have gotten something clear in that one. Okay, let's go on. This picture, just as background, we've been having the board go through a series of workshops just to refocus on where we've been in the last 2 years and what generally. And then we'll bring the new board on with that so we kind of have that all focused in before they go to start the search in January. So we're doing some purposeful things to try to make sure we have our focus about the future that way. And of course, an event, but this is kind of a reverse event, is our financial event. Every year we have to go through a budget process. And so today is a big day for the 26-27 budget because it is what we call certified count day. We have to take account of all the kids that we have in seats today, all right? And then that becomes the money, it drives the money that we will receive for next year because Iowa is a student-based funding formula, okay? So we're going to walk through this. The board has to approve the budget for 26-27 in April of 26. So we actually work backwards from that date a little bit, but it's kind of funky. So the first step that we have to do actually is to determine the financial position of the district as of 6/30/25. So that's completed with the certified annual report, which is done, and we have that all back. So we know where we, on paper, ended that 24-25 school year. All right. So the next step is to identify and monitor the anticipated financial position as of the end of 6/30/26. So we have a budget, okay? And we get down to the nitty-gritty of that budget. And we are now obligated to make sure that we're monitoring that for 5 years out. So that's the big surface view. And then the little piece is, where are we on a month-to-month basis in terms of where we think we're going to be at the end of the year? So that goes on throughout this year, so that then we'll know our financial position at the end of June next year. And at the same time that we're constantly monitoring that, we have to begin to identify the resources available to build the budget for 26/27. Okay? Today being the count day, which is the biggest piece, because off of that count comes how we're going to determine the amount of money we get based on the formula. The second part of that is when legislature comes back into session and they decide what percentage of supplemental state aid, which is an increase for each child, that we will receive for next year. Okay? And so that's how that all works. Our financial position at the end of last year was strong. Okay? This district went through very, very challenging times a couple years ago and cut close to $1 million. All right? They also had the benefit of the hailstorm, and you say, why the benefit? Because that was all insurance money that came into the general fund and went out to another fund. But since it hit the general fund, that allowed them to access some more cash because they had it. So they took the cash in last year's budget, and so we have cash. This district, like all districts now, are having to monitor your authority. And I think if you listen to me preach this last year in the running, cash is very important. You have to have enough money to pay your bills. Authority is important because that's the reason. If you lose authority, which is a number based on your revenues, your expenditures, minus, it's a calculation. If you lose authority, that gives the state the power to come in and say, you need to give us a plan. You need to execute the plan. If you can't execute the plan, then they just keep going back and forth. And Davenport was one of those schools for different reasons that got there. There's typically one or two, and the list gets longer where you're having to manage authority. It's also why we have to have the 5-year view, because it may look like you're going to lose authority in 3 years, but that gives you the ability to adjust. So my point being, you adjusted when you saw that you were going to lose authority in a couple of years, all right? When we moved out of Davis, we were also able to find savings by bringing them together in terms of services. We didn't cut services to kids, but we were able to use our staff differently in being able to do that. So those are all good points and a good position for the district. I do have to tell you, because I've made the statement in an open meeting, our enrollment is going to be down this year, okay? It's going to be down more than 20, potentially more than 30 students. The sky is not falling. What'd I say? The sky is not falling, okay? We have the benefit of the cuts that were made 3 years ago. We have the benefits of the challenges we encountered with Davis to get us right-sized. When we get to the new school, you will be able to do some more, and that's going to buy you the couple of years. So obviously as a district, we will take everything that we can take without impacting student instruction as much as possible. To keep righting the ship slowly, righting the ship slowly is much easier than taking a hard right, which you did a couple years ago. So I'm trying to position you not to have to do that hard right again. Okay. Questions related to budgeting. Isn't that a high note to leave on? Okay.
Is the income from Davis one time or ongoing?
So we took very little direct income from Davis because it was going to cost us more money to maintain it, and it wouldn't have been classified as a school. So the costs that were tied to Davis in terms of insurance, utilities, anything tied to it, okay, we would have been paying taxes. our insurance would have increased by $40,000 on that building alone because it wasn't a school building. Those are ongoing, okay? Just as when we move, when they dispose of the 2 elementaries that they'll dispose of, the new building's more efficient. There will still be costs, but there should be some savings because those buildings are not as efficient and their systems are older that are demanding that. So the savings from Davis was ongoing to the district, okay? The staffing is ongoing, as were all of the hard costs.
I'm not sure that asking you a why question is even fair, but can you explain why these students left the district? Did the population of Grinnell go down, or did the students leave?
Okay, so I do spend time because I kind of geek out on some of that stuff. We do know that we saw, last year if you remember, we had the chronic absenteeism bill that was pretty stringent. And they've backed off on that a little bit. So we do know that over the course of last year, we lost a larger than usual number of kids to virtual schools, okay? And I can go out to a virtual school. I can open and roll out to a virtual school at any time. And so we lost kids, especially kids who we were pressuring to get to school. Okay, so that was an option that they could exercise. And then again, this fall, when we worked the return, there were multiple kids who went out to virtual schools. There were a number of kids. There was only, I believe, 1 or 2 kids that open enrolled out to a neighboring contiguous district, okay? There were multiple kids who moved out of state. And so I'd say it's going to be a split in what we have. It's going to be a driver between the online schools and my family physically moved, most of them out of the state, okay? So I think that's, I can't tell you one is growing or less, because the piece that I don't have clear and won't dig into until today is, okay, so I'm down this number of kids, but how many kids had to move into the district to keep me at that point? All right, so there's that shuffle.
What about the vouchers for the private schools?
So the vouchers for the private schools, we have not a lot. Not here, not like I would have seen. When I was in West Burlington, we had Notre Dame, Holy Trinity in Fort Madison, which my understanding has drawn a lot. It's one of the challenges of Pella right now is because of Pella Christian and the amount that's going there. So we don't have a lot. I think we might have 7 or 8 kids that would be going out to the Christian school. No, I think that's in total. I didn't bring my paper, but I will finalize that, and I will present that to the board. Probably not this meeting, but the next meeting, because we will allow the state to give us they'll go in and look and say, we got a kid that has 2 ID numbers. Every kid gets a state ID number. We got 2 kids here. Somebody's not right. You gotta fix this. So try to give them a week or so to do that. Okay.
2 questions. The amount of per pupil funding per year and whether that'll be increasing.
That is a magic ball question. So the amount of per
At least
pupil.
one other question. And where does Iowa rank in the country on per pupil funding?
Well, they're not going up. I can't give you the exact one, okay? And so I think so the 2 pieces. Roughly you get on the per pupil funding about $8,000 a year. That doesn't include categorical funds. Okay, so by the time you're done with categorical funds and you take what we would tax for in at-risk or dropout prevention, a kid is worth about $11,000. Okay, so that's when you put all of the funds that are coming in. So that per pupil is just the base. It doesn't include what comes in federally. What will they do? I think if we get 2% increase, so about $160 per child, we're going to be doing well. Is that enough? Not with the cost that we're experiencing, but everything swings. And so you have to figure out how you're going to weather this or how you're just going to manage it. And this is Lisa Beams speaking, public education is going to have to change in some ways. I believe personally, now you're not going to like me, okay? I believe personally that there are systems within schools that we can regionalize and be more efficient with and still have communities maintain their mascots and maintain their community. And we need to figure out how to do that, because your expense often, salary is your greatest expense, and yes, teachers are expensive, but the state is supporting that. A lot of your expense comes from your higher end administration, and I don't know that you would save a lot of money, but you would provide a better service. And so we right now are sharing with Newton for our SBO, all right? And that says, well, how do you do that? How many days? Most of our stuff is done virtually. Our software is all cloud-based software, secure as we can make it. But so having somebody physically in the district to monitor hours is getting the job done, and he's doing a good job at getting it done. But those are the types of things we have to figure out how we're going to embrace, because it may come down to we need to do that to maintain our community schools. Okay, and there's some pieces, there's just not the pool, guys. I am really interested in seeing what we get for a pool. I'm hoping for the very, very best. But if you think about administrators and you think about what they're dealing with right now, we're not seeing the pool of people go into administration. We're not seeing it go into being teachers. Where do we get our administrators? We get our administrators from our teachers. You have to have basically had a teacher's license in order to become an administrator. You have to have had an administrator's license to become a superintendent. And if we don't keep that pool going and figuring out how to do it, and we can't keep good finance people, then it's going to be a challenge as a system to do it. That's a long ways down the road, okay? So I don't want you fretting over that. I just do. Change is going to happen. And I think that kind of leads us to the end, because Sarah's looking at me. And just this, seasons change. Things change. And if we don't change, if a tree doesn't have leaves on it, okay, if it's just been starved, it's not going to continue to exist. So everything's about change. Events happen. Some of them are within our control and some of them are not within our control. We have to deal with those that are within our control. We have to figure out how to shift if we need to shift for, this sounds dramatic, but the future of the country, our kids, and all of that. We have to prepare kids for the world they're going to enter, not the world that we entered. And we have to have a system that can do that. Some of it, I would not do the way they're doing, but what do I know? Okay. All right. With that, that's kind of, I don't mean to be a downer, but I've got 3 minutes. Oh, see, I took a really good party and made it bad. Any questions about enrollment or financing or anything like that?
I have a question. Could you talk?
Oh, can you?
Could you talk a little bit about what you mean by regionalized, like sharing stuff with Newton or something? Is
Okay.
that what you mean?
So first of all, in Iowa, you can share up to the value of 21 kids, all right? So you get the money for 21 kids. So if you take the weighting of 21 kids times 8,000, that's $168,000. Okay, so each position is worth different money, a different number of kids, okay? And you calculate so you can get up to 21. So that's the incentive the state is providing for you to work towards sharing. And if you do it in a true fashion, it can be very productive. If you're doing it in name to get the money, it gets a little bit challenging. So when I talk about regionalizing, our financial system, our HR system, those are pretty high, and you have to have a specific skill set. And finding people with that specific skill set at the top to deal with all the changes legally, to deal with HR matters, to deal with the financing and the spending authority, and knowing how you can deal with those, it's getting to be a really, really small pool, okay? There are not a lot of people that can do it and do it very, very well. We've been fortunate with our SBOs. We're larger, okay? But so people tend to move up. But anyway, so when we all need that skill as a public school district, if we can find ways in which to build systems and get people to understand why you're doing those sharing agreements and why that becomes important to everyone in order of maintaining quality. When you don't have skills in those areas, and it's just, nobody intends it, I don't believe, maliciously, but it takes such a depth of knowledge in those areas anymore with the law and all of that, that there's not enough. So we can be more efficient. So by sharing with Newton, we're saving must be like 3 or 4. So we're somewhere between 33 and 44,000 that we're going to get back for the cost of what we're paying them. All right, and we're paying them 20% of the time. So those are big ticket people that you want to have skill in, and so that's how the state's incentivizing us. But that's what they're trying to get to.
It's a larger pool than
Well, you need a smaller pool of skilled people to serve more districts if you can figure out how to regionalize it. And I would tell you our state, okay, I can take you down another track of state. We all have different student information systems where we have to hold our data and the state pulls it up, okay? We don't have one system that the state uses, all right? So there are like 2 or 3 of them. And so we all spend time training and have to have people who have high skill in running that on the back end, in knowing what to look for in the data and structuring it so we can use it, but also so that the state can get it. If we were to adopt one statewide student information system, which is viewed as we're losing local control, the state's taking something away from us, we could probably produce a better product and be more efficient in terms of how we transfer kids between districts, how we collect data, how we get rid of some of the spreadsheets that we're keeping in the back end, and all those pieces. But that's why I say it's just change. It's hard. It's what we've known. And somehow we have to prepare for an event and start transitioning for it even though we don't know fully what the event's going to look like. That's pretty deep. Sorry. I was doing so well. Okay. All right.
Is it the same with payroll systems? Does every school district
Pretty
have their
much.
own?
They use, there's a couple, and most of us use Software Unlimited, which is the accounting and payroll side of it. Accounting all runs, pretty much everybody uses the same software. There's a couple one-offs, but that part makes it easy, so we actually, getting that high-end skill is the piece. And a degree doesn't just help you understand school finance. I've been in school districts where we've had auditors. People come out of the auditor's office, state auditor's office, didn't understand school finance, and it did not end well, okay? Wow. You have to work your way through the system and spend time working up to understand school finance. I would love to tell you it's like your home budget. No. Okay. I think
Not
I'm over.
at all. No, you're fine. Will you please help me thank Superintendent Beams? Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for being here. So wonderful. Because there's a lot of things happening in our school district. I'm still a firm believer that school districts are one of the foundations that thriving towns have to have and have to have successful school districts in order for people to be here. So Superintendent Beams, I thank you for all of the work that you've done to get us in some really, really great positions and finance, building, everything for a really, really good future for our community. So thank you, thank you. I appreciate it.
I have so enjoyed it. My husband thanks you for having me here. Not ready. Closer. Not ready for me to be home every day. He still frets about it.
Well, you can always come back here, so you know a place to stay. That's for sure. I do want to lift up again something that you said at the beginning of this presentation. Next week, as we're ending this talk about the school district, next week is truly a really wonderful celebration about our kids and about our teachers and about our school district with homecoming week. So I really, really highly encourage you all to get to the parade, which starts, I think, is at 5:30. It's downtown. It just goes around the downtown. And then it ends after the parade. There's a pep rally, and it's just really fun to see our youth be excited about the school and about each other. And that happens at the pavilion and the stage downtown in Central Park. So grab your lawn chair and just sit there and watch. It's just so wonderful to hear the band and to hear from students. And it's a really, really wonderful event to cheer on our high school and school districts. So anyway, that's next week. Then, again, I want to highlight, so we're going to resume back on October 22nd. Very excited to have both Julie Gosling and Nicole Brewer-Barons from our local foundations here to talk about philanthropy. Talk about how we can give back to the community and how we can become a stronger community through their marvelous work that they do here, both in Grinnell and in the county. So have a wonderful rest of your week. Great to see everyone, and take care. Thank you.